Life can bring you a lot of lemons, and when it comes to computers, anything that Microsoft can touch will likely give you a sour taste and make your Linux experience extremely difficult. Just to give you a scenario, I have two M.2 NVMe SSDs. One has pure Linux on it, which is Ubuntu. Another SSD has dual boot Windows and Zorin, which is the original SSD on the machine. So you would think that if you replace the SSD with pure Ubuntu, that it should work fine since there's no Windows in it. Wrong. On newer laptops, there's another layer that Windows sticks its fingers into, even though it's not even installed. It's called NVRAM. And then when I put the dual boot SSD back, it locks up and looks for Windows, and it will not boot on Grub even if I restore a backup of the boot partition. Today we will make lemonade out of this. Because of this disaster, I had to learn how to solve this, and boy did I come up with a solution that has saved me, and it is so simple. If the Linux install craps out on me because of a problem with the boot partition or because of this special thing on the motherboard called NVRAM, no big deal. I reinstall Linux and all my apps and documents are back to original. It doesn't take that long to reinstall. The solution is called a multi-partition install, and if you use Linux, this is a great idea to use all the time, and you can even safely upgrade from Ubuntu 24.04 to Ubuntu 26.04 with this from a fresh install with no hiccups. This should be the standard way you install desktop Linux in all cases. Let's go figure this thing out. Stay right there. What is this NVRAM? The culprit that makes life so difficult is called NVRAM, or non-volatile RAM, and this is actually on the motherboard, not on your hard drive. So when you remove your hard drive, you would think that the entirety of the operating system is in it, but you would be wrong. Apparently, the UEFI bootloader refers back to the boot variable stored in NVRAM and then will persist in pushing whatever OS was installed last. It also even persists prior installs of prior OSs. This particular variable outside of our control means there's always a chance that your Linux install will be broken at some point. Windows, on the other hand, is very aggressive. If Windows ever runs, it ensures that it is at the top of the boot sequence and erases anything else, and it is not very friendly to other OSs. And it will guarantee its position at the top of the NVRAM boot list. For this reason, you always have to assume that something will break your Linux install, because Linux, in contrast, is not very pushy. It will coexist with whatever OS is already there, including another Linux install. So because of this discovery, I realized that my old video teaching you to back up the boot partition for dual boot is not going to work in all cases. But fortunately, we can limit the damage that Windows can ever do. Multi-Partition Linux Install. The solution to have a more robust Linux install is to do a multi-partition install, and specifically, this means creating one or more extra partitions to split Linux, so it is not in one big volume. It turns out that Linux is really well suited for this, and the end result is that you can preserve your documents and files, and it will not get erased during a reinstall. And you have to pay attention to how you install Linux to do this. And I will also show you that most apps will keep their settings in this separate partition so that you don't have to reconfigure everything again. This makes Linux reinstallation really quick, and frankly, it is faster than restoring from backup or doing really complex procedures for fixing the bootloader settings. The neat thing about this is that you can do this even on an existing Linux installation, or if you've lost access to your Linux installation, you can use your USB stick for your distro, which is called the Live USB, and you can still access your files and even do this fix ahead of time before reinstalling Linux. So this solution is always available to you with an old install or a new install. To save yourself time in case of a future disaster, I'd advise that you do this procedure now, even if you have no problems. Main steps. The main steps I will explain today is first to create a separate partition for Linux. This means shrinking the current Linux partition and then creating a new partition with that new space. I will show you how to do this using the disks utility. You're going to need your live USB for a lot of this, including the reinstall, of course. So get that ready ahead of time. For simplification, I'm going to use an Ubuntu 26.04 live USB, and all examples will use Ubuntu. After you create a new partition, you will format it in ext4, which is the standard Linux format and cannot be read by Windows. Then we will copy your home directory to this new partition. Then we will reinstall Linux, and I will show you how you specify that your /home directory is now in a different partition. Then you will reinstall your apps on Linux, but you will see that with a few exceptions, your apps will be restored to original and you don't need to set it up again. For example, Thunderbird is automatically installed by a fresh Ubuntu install, and all your email accounts will still be in place. You do have to reinstall apps that are not installed by Ubuntu. I reinstalled Brave, Chrome, and so on, and they will appear the same as before with all the remembered settings, including the original bookmarks. Now, don't rush out of here because you think you already know what's going to follow, because at the end, I will tell you how to manually fix boot EFI settings if Windows screws with you, like when I lost access to Zorin on my dual boot SSD. Linux Partitioning Guide. Again, before you start this venture, always have the live USB ready. It's not just used to install Linux from scratch. The Try Ubuntu feature gives us full Linux access if we've lost access somehow, and you can still read all of your data. Just a simple guide to make a live USB. Download the ISO from ubuntu.com. And then if you have a running OS, you can run Balena Etcher and restore the image of Ubuntu to the USB drive, and that creates your live USB. Now, let me just give you some partitioning tips. As it turns out, the OS side of Linux is very stable. It doesn't change much in size. And for an existing Linux desktop user, most of the change in your OS space comes from documents and files in the /home directory. If you're a more advanced user like a developer, then you will likely also grow the /var/live directory, as this is where things like databases and such will be stored. So for that subgroup, it may be necessary to create an extra partition. The maximum you can expect to use for the OS side of Linux without data is 100 gigabytes. It's more around 50 gigabytes in reality, but we're allowing for logs, temp files, swap files, and so on. So my suggestion is to shrink the main Linux partition to no more than 100 gigabytes. If you have a 512 gigabyte drive, that leaves you with 412 gigabytes for your home directory. If you have a larger drive and have Windows installed as well, you can shrink Windows. You can only reclaim partition space if the freed up space is contiguous, meaning next to each other. If the free space is all over the place, then I would just back up the data on an external drive, delete the existing partitions, and create new volumes with better organization. Remember that Windows cannot see what's in an ext4 partition, so do your resizing inside the operating system that uses that partition. So use Linux to shrink Linux partitions, and use Windows to shrink Windows partitions. shrinking partitions. Fortunately, like I said, you can shrink partitions in Linux even using the live USB or try Ubuntu. I will assume you have an existing Linux install here, and we will overwrite this install with a fresh version. So start by booting from the live USB. For most computers, this means hitting the F12 at the beginning of the boot sequence, and that should bring up the boot menu. This will then allow you to pick out your USB stick to boot from. And then when Ubuntu starts out, you will be given the option to try or install Ubuntu. You will do try. Then find the Show Apps icon on Ubuntu, which is that circle thing, and under the Systems group of apps, you will find the Disks app. Select your hard drive that you want to modify, and you will see your partitions. On my install example here, you will see three main partitions: the system partition, a partition 2 at 200 gigabytes, and then a partition 3 at 824 gigabytes. This is a 1 terabyte SSD. I also have a small partition 4 that has unused space, but we're not going to count that. Mine is already partitioned correctly, but in the original form, the partition 2 was 1024 gigabytes, so I only had 2 usable partitions to start with. If this were a new case, you'd select partition 2, then hit the gear button, and you will get the option to resize, as you see here. Here I still have the option of reducing this partition to the 100 gigabytes I suggested. Mine is bigger than that. The size offered to you depends on the amount of current data fragmentation you have on your drive. On a newer OS install, you usually have more freedom to shrink your partition. For better shrinking, especially on Windows, you can defragment your drive. That's an option on File Manager in Windows. For a Linux install, the partitions don't have to be contiguous, but you cannot resize a partition larger using space that's not contiguous. So in a normal case, as I suggest here, what you will do is create the partition like I created here, which is the one called partition 3. I've already made it, but this is the intent. Then the last step is to format the partition, and the format must be ext4. Once it is formatted, you can copy the /home directory contents over using the Files app on the Try Ubuntu Live USB to the new volume. So currently you will have 2 copies of your home folder, but during reinstall, the original home folder will be wiped clean. Reinstalling Linux. Now let's reinstall Ubuntu, and I'll show exactly what you have to do. First, we go through the usual prompts on language and keyboard, and then you must select Manual Install, and then select Interactive. This particular screen will be different for different distros of Linux, so I just caution you here that it may not look the same. However, the principles are the same. First, you must specify which will be the boot partition, and Ubuntu that's selected by this drop-down over here. And this is almost always the first partition and is where Windows would install its boot partition as well. Next, you need to specify the main Linux partition, and you identify this as the main Linux partition by indicating a mount point. The mount point is /, which means root. And finally, the extra step is to go to your new partition and indicate that mount point as /home. For the more advanced user, you may have a third Linux partition with a mount point of /var/live. Again, this is useful for those that run MySQL databases. Now here's the most crucial point. If you look at the column for format, only the root mount point will be formatted. This is the main indication that the /home directory will be mounted, but it will not be erased. So format means erase. The default is that only the root directory has been format checked. That's pretty much the only difference, and you can proceed with the install, selecting your preferred Linux settings for the rest. After Linux finishes the install and you reboot, you will find that Linux will start normally. If Windows destroyed your Linux bootloader, it will be fixed now and dual boot will be running again. Your home folder will have your files, but if there are apps not previously installed, you have to reinstall them again. Like in my case, I had to install Chrome, Brave, VS Code, Signal, Telegram manually. If you documented how you install each one, it should be a piece of cake to repeat the install, but I will show you why the apps do not have to be reconfigured. In your home directory, if I use the command ls-la, it will show all the hidden files in home, and one of them is .config. And there you go. Most apps actually keep their configurations here, and those apps installed via Snap will have their configurations in the Snap directory. This is why your apps don't lose their settings after a reinstall. I don't know why this isn't stated more clearly. So it doesn't actually matter so much if you reinstall Linux over and over. EFI Boot Manager. Now let's go through some fine points. If you have multiple OSs installed on the drive, you will have to deal with the EFI Boot Manager, as this controls the boot sequence. This actually is what is modified by Windows to force itself at the top of the boot sequence and erase grub or the Linux bootloader. The only actual way to ensure you have access to the NVRAM boot variables is by using this command in Linux. To list what is currently in the boot list, enter sudo EFI boot manager -v. This will show what is currently in NVRAM. The key fields to look at is the section showing boot order. And in this example, it shows 0002 as the first one. And then if you scan the detail, boot 0002 is Ubuntu. So I know Ubuntu will be first. I'll show you a different boot list from another computer. And this one is a dual boot computer and has Windows listed, which is usually 0004. Where this is a problem is when you're on a dual boot and Windows is the first one. That will definitely fail. Assuming your Ubuntu install is shown on the list as boot 0002 and Windows is shown as boot 0004, which is typical after a dual boot install, a failed bootloader that keeps starting only Windows will show something along the lines of boot order 0004 and then the rest. So Windows is loaded first. So the first solution is to issue the command sudo EFI boot manager -0002, 0004 -a. The point here is to make sure Windows is not first. What follows after Ubuntu and Windows doesn't matter. This command will override NVRAM and your normal dual boot will be restored. Typically, this is all you need to do and you don't have to reinstall Linux, but it doesn't hurt to reinstall Linux, as the time it takes, typically 10 minutes, isn't that much time compared to other complex solutions like restoring grub and so on. Final thoughts. My mistake in the past when I tested this was that I assumed that the settings for the EFI system partition, ESP, or boot partition was located only on the hard drive. And when you stick with one hard drive and never change it, you will not notice this. But I only noticed this because my main computer broke down and I transferred my SSD to another computer, thinking it will work just fine. It did not. And the reason is that the computer retains the values of the OS in the motherboard NVRAM and not just the hard drive. This turned out to be a good lesson because it made me realize that the way I've been installing Linux in the past is not the best way. This new way should be the standard way we always install a desktop Linux computer. Not for a server, but for a desktop. Enjoy. Thanks for watching the video. I just want to bring our usual plug of the Braxme platform where the privacy folks gather. Join us and chat about the topics in the videos. To support this channel, we have a store there with privacy-oriented products like Braxmail, email with unlimited aliases, Bytes VPN with new anti-deep packet inspection tech, Brax Virtual Phone for anonymous phone numbers, and more. On the hardware front, Brax 3, which is one of the most successful phone launches from a specialty manufacturer, is back in stock at braxtech.net. The new Brax Open Slate can be pre-ordered for delivery in the fall. Thank you to those who donate to us on Patreon, Locals, and YouTube memberships. See you next time.